All right, hey everybody, Mark Burgess, Big East Bass Fishing, bringing you another video. First I want to say thank you very much to everybody that's subscribed to the channel. It's slowly getting there. Very positive about that. So looking forward to growing it even more, obviously. So thank everybody for subscribing. And to the new subscribers, welcome aboard. And everybody, please, if you would like to have me talk about whatever you want to talk about, I'll be more than glad to do it. Just let me know in the comments. All right, so that kind of leads me into what I'm going to talk about today. The number of comments that I've had on the video that I posted regarding Jacob Fouts and his story about the last two seasons for him on the Elite Series. Okay, so a couple different things came out of that. I may have to break this up into two videos. We'll see how it goes here. So the two comments were basically on the money side and what to do if you find yourself in that position, which is qualifying for the Elite Series. Okay, so going to start with the money side. All right, so a little bit of a history on my story regarding the money side of it. So as I mentioned in the last video, you know, I started fishing professionally in the fall of '96. '97 was my first full year. Had a good season. Actually would have qualified for the BP Top 150s at the conclusion of that season, but Bass changed the rules to fill the field from the Legends exemption or rule that they had. I was actually 14th going into Hartwell in the fall. No, excuse me, 14th going into Hartwell in the spring. And I didn't have a clue what was going on, really. You know, I knew that time of year they're going to be shallow, but they had already spawned. They moved out, and they were feeding on shad off those long tapering points and bars and things, schooling on that. And I never saw them schooling, but they were schooling everywhere, so don't ask me. But anyway, I ended up finishing like 32nd or 34th overall in points. They only went back to the top 25. And when I went and looked at the double qualifiers, I had easily qualified. If you take those guys out, they were already in the top 150, that easily qualified. So when I called Bass, they said, no, sorry, Mark, we're going to fill the field with Legends. So, okay. Another time was, I'm getting a little bit off track here, but another time they needed to fill the field years later. They invited me and I declined it. So in 2008, when I qualified, obviously I jumped all over it. Okay, so on the money side, leading up to that, as I mentioned, money wasn't an issue from that point through 2008. Okay, all the money that basically I was earning was through the sales side. Okay, now yeah, I was cashing checks in tournaments. I had a run, I think, on the opens with like 5 in a row or something like that. Not a lot of money there though. I cashed some checks on the FLW side, FLW Tour that I qualified for through points back in like 2000, 2001. And fished the FLW Tour for a year. And then I fished the FLW Series in 06, 07. So anyway, that wasn't a problem, okay? So, but when I qualified for the Elite Series, all the sales stuff pretty much went away, okay? Because the Elite Series, I mean, you're all in, okay? So I had to rely on sponsors and not for the sales side, but just like the endorsement side of it. So a lot less money for me going into the Elite Series for 2009 and 2010. So as I mentioned, I'd spent $75,000 a year, 09 and 10, 150 grand, you know, fishing the Elite Series for those 2 years. So it was tough. I mean, I found myself, that's why I could relate to Jacob Fouts. First year in 2009, we went to Amistad. And then 2 weeks later, or just a week break, we were going to be up on Dardanelle. Okay, so when I fished Amistad, I found myself with not enough money to fly home, and certainly not enough time or money to drive all the way home and then drive all the way back to Dardanelle in Arkansas. So I spent a week on Lake Fork, which was awesome. Camping in my camper, my truck camper, before Dardanelle, and then we fished Dardanelle. So I can relate to what he's saying there, okay, because I didn't have the money, like I said, to fly or drive home. So and that was pretty much my first season on the Elite Series. There was one point where I was away for 6 weeks, which is difficult if you got kids, which at the time, Dakota wasn't that old, so that was tough being away from him for 6 weeks, and Lisa and Jamie, of course, and Ben. So that's like I said, I can relate to him when it comes down to that. Okay, so it was a couple of lean years there for the Burgess family for sure. The big, the last true crash or recession in 2009. When I qualified in 2008, and Lisa and I sat down to discuss it and think it all through, I could see a lot of the sales side of it going away. And it was kind of like, if you don't do it now, you're probably never going to do it. Okay, so that was basically the motivation behind it, or the number one reason behind it, because we were put in that position at that time. So yeah, things not easy, financially, if you're trying to count on tournament winnings, which at that time they only paid back to 50th, and there was like 103, 104, something like that, angles in the Elite Series field. It was 0. 51st was 0. Now they go back, I believe, to mid-70s with like a couple grand, okay, which would, for me, that would have been awesome, because I had more than my share of finishes that were, 51st, 52nd, in the 50s and the 60s. And that certainly would have helped a lot from me personally and my family. So that, I get it. I get it. And like I mentioned in the last video, you really can't do it without financial support or something else that you can promote through your fishing. That's probably the best model, that I can recommend, and like, as I mentioned, Bass, they give you that platform. So if you can work that into whatever it is to promote that business, that brand, that product, whatever it is, that'll certainly help and go a long way with being able to financially make it, on the Elite Series. Okay, so the next thing I want to talk about, and I think I'm going to actually end up doing like a part 2 to this, and I'll lead into it a little bit, is what do you do if you find yourself in that position? Okay, so obviously, if you signed up the first year, there were 175 EQ anglers, Elite Series qualifiers, that fished all 9. Okay, so if you signed up for all 9, you were an EQ angler, and obviously that was your goal. Okay, this year is 150 guys or people, guys and girls that have signed up for it. So obviously they have that, in their sights. That's their goal. But what if you're not? Okay, what if you're not? So that's what I'm going to talk about. Really, what's the motivation there? Why do people do it? If you're not going to qualify for the Elite Series, but what happens if you happen to find yourself in a position where you qualified through the nation, okay, unexpectedly, okay? All right, so that's what we're going to talk about. Again, thank you so much for checking out this video and all my videos and subscribing to it. If you haven't already, please subscribe to it. Doesn't cost you nothing, and I greatly appreciate it. Everybody have a great day.